Now, continuing on there's basically just two types that I'm looking at. Okay, so as I have described before, it essentially is just like this. There's just two types. One type is it's going this down, so it's just going down, and it's just going up, or actually it goes down and down, or it's in a formation like this, where there is an indication that there is a major trend reversal. Okay, so one of the things that, so that's essentially how trading is essentially evolving, how things are viewed, really. There's really just two types. Okay, so if I were to draw, uh, if I were to draw a shape and so if I were to just draw, the first part is this, okay? The first part is the continuation. So essentially, if a trade is, if a trade, okay, so let's, okay. So if the trade, there's, the first part is stock starts here, okay? Hang on, okay? Stock starts right here, and then moves sideways like that, and then moves up, or it retraces and then moves up, or it moves up and then moves sideways, okay, and then moves up, okay. So this is a type of moves that occurs. So if I look at this range of a trend continuation, and I look at, if I were to draw a little area here, so if I look at this area and format shape, okay, now I'm not going to fill it up. No fill. Line is going to be golden color, just like that, okay? Maybe not. Maybe the color isn't vivid enough. Let's use that one, okay? So this would be a one way of looking at it, and if I look at it here, now that would be another range area, and if I were to put it here, so essentially what happens is that there are essentially about at least three different ways for a stock to exhibit a continuation. Even though it's taking a breather, it's actually still going up, okay? And this is based on the onset of a reversion. Reversion occurs, the second part is essentially, if I look at it, I am looking at a situation where the stock has started to move down and then started to move this way or that way or this way or that way, okay? And then has established a, well, that's, okay, so let's cut that. Okay, so let's draw it again. So when I look at this situation, if I were to look at it from this perspective and starting from that point on, or let's say I'm looking at a situation where the stock starts like that and then does this, boop, up like that, and then starts to trend just like that, okay, does this, spikes up a little bit, and then moves down, and then moves down, and then moves down just like that. So there are just essentially two types of situations where the stock behaves based on this is essentially a description of what the stocks will do, essentially. Okay, even if the stock is moving sideways, it moves up, moves down, moves up. That's what sideways is. And this, the range. So if I look at this situation here, so just to cover the bases, so if I look here, I mean, if something is here, so if something is here like that, and then if I were to duplicate it, and then put it here, so essentially, if I look at it, I mean, it's going to be a range bound. This is a range bound situation, even if it's moving sideways. That the magnitude will be based on the volatility of the stock. So the stock essentially moves in a couple different manner. And once that I've received, there's a, okay, so what is an anatomy of, so these are the areas that I need to study. Okay, so this is the area, I need to become an expert in this area, this area, this area. Obviously, so I need to understand the way that the stocks move. Okay, one of them is, what is the angle of ascent, and what are the descriptions that can be described about this particular area of interest that is stating to me that it is essentially a continuation breather. So these are the breathers. So if I uh, so these are the points of breathers. So if I look here, so that's a breather. Okay, a region of breathing. Okay, and right there. So here we are, right here. Those are the regions where it's essentially a region of breathing area. Okay, where the stock is taking a rest. It's taking a water. So I need to become very, very familiar with it. So when I look at it, I'm looking at this situation as a trend. Essentially, it is a trend, despite the fact that it is performing certain breathing exercises from point A to point B. So if I write down point A here, okay, point A, and then that's point B right here. And then what I am looking for, the critical component of the critical, so that is essentially defining the entry into a trend. This is the, that's what I'm attempting to do. That's what I needed to be doing. Okay, so if I look at this situation here, that's what I need to be doing. This region of, this is the region where, this is the point at which point I can get in at any point, so that it is essentially a trend. And so what are the indications that allows me to have confidence in knowing that at any point of these interest, that it is still in a continuation of this trend being still alive in here? Just like if I look at a daily time frame, I can look at certain chart formations with the candles exhibiting the traits that it has a strong strength towards continuing in the trend. That's how I can figure out how to trade. So I can get in at any point, even here, with a sufficient stop loss to allow me to return into a trend that allows me to take profit based on that existing backbone of a trend. So I need to focus on these two. Essentially, there's just two types, really, just two types. Even inside, even if the stock is moving sideways, limited by the upper and lower support and resistance areas, right? Resistance support areas, bouncing off here, bouncing off there. That is essentially, or maybe it's in a trend that is trend doing this if it's big enough, right? So if it's doing this, it's in a trend here. So I could buy here, I could sell here, and things like that, right? So that's what I'm looking at. The critical point of major trend reversal is going to be a couple of points of interest. Okay, how do I how do I declare? How do I declare? Okay, so this is going to be a critical component of a reversion trade. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at it from a perspective. So when I see a particular point of interest that is essentially that is essentially the biggest the biggest point of interest is essentially right at this point right there. Okay, so this, what are the characteristics? What are the characteristics that define a major trend reversal? I need to look at this particular point of interest, and I need to highlight it to demonstrate. Okay, so let's cut that, and let's copy this. Okay, so I'm here, right here, at this point of interest, right there. Okay, this is where the significant, this is where the significance of reversion takes place. Critical signal that tells me a major trend reversal is taking effect. That's the point. What's the other criteria? That's point one. There has to be a couple of different points that I need to observe in order to conclude, and that can vary based on whatever is happening. I mean, it could move up, down, up, down, up, down. That's why there's a stop loss that needs to be placed in order to ensure that certain periodic things that occur, and I can absorb the variance in that for me to make the right trades. And I can also, what I see here is going to appear here as well, right? That's breather. Okay, that essentially is just repeating what I've seen as a continuation signals. Okay, but the major signal is when I look at this particular point of interest, what makes it, what separates this upward trajectory to be still considered as a trend, but it creates this particular signature, which is different than this signature, that allows me to conclude that it is a major trend reversal. That is the critical component of the difference between a critical components entering into a trend and critical component of a reversion trade. Critical component of entering a reversion trade. Okay, that's what's happening right here. That's what this is. I mean, trading is essentially just essentially boils down to this. When I look at the other, so I'm gonna be looking for these critical components of on a time frame basis to study where I can enter and where I can exit. So, so this is a blueprint, fundamental theoretical perspective to overlay onto any other trades, and I'm going to extrapolate it as on a daily time frame to see how I can identify these critical components in my trades so that I can take that trade. Okay, these are the strong backbone of a this is a strong backbone of a theoretical understanding of how the stocks behave. This is the critical component that places everything together. So now after this, I'm going to analyze and identify the situations that are unfolding in order for me to take the trade and say, okay, this is the point where essentially I could have just gone on this. It is defining a it is defining here a continuation of the trade, or I am identifying a critical juncture at this point that specifies that it is a major trend reversal. When there's a major trend reversal, there will be a uh, there will be a substantial move in the other counter direction to where it originally started, based on a signal that is exhibiting a solid characteristics, and that can be seen whether it's in a small time frame or it's in a bigger time frame or a bigger time frame. That is the area of interest that I'm going to be studying to and provide some additional clues that allows me to generate and become more aware of how I can take advantage of these critical signals that allows me to make that trade and allow and assign a statistical probability that when I make the trade, the statistical probability is going to determine how effective my trades will be.